cord to the cloud. Okay, we're back on here. We're continuing our Torah portion for today. We are going to be doing 1 Kings chapters 1 to chapter 6. I'll start us off here. Okay, so 1 Kings chapter 1. Let's see, for simplicity, I'll use the LXX 2012 here. And King David was old and advanced in years, advanced in days, and they covered him with clothes, and he was not warmed. And his servant said, let them seek for the king a young virgin, and she shall wait on the king and cherish him and lie with him, and my master the king shall be warmed. So they sought for a fair damsel out of all the coasts of Yasharal, and they found Abisag the Somanite, and they brought her to the king. And the damsel was extremely beautiful and cherished the king and ministered to him, but the king knew her not. And Adoniah, the son of Haggith, exalted himself, saying, I will be king. And he prepared for himself chariots and horses and men and 50 men to run before him. I got a little note here. Okay. The Greek says made. Okay. Interesting. All right. And his father never at any time checked him, saying, why have you done thus? And he was also very handsome in appearance, and his mother bore him after Absalom. And he conferred with Joab, the son of Zeruiah, and with Abiathar the priest, and they followed after Adoniah. But Zadok the priest, and Benaiah the son of Yodai, and Nathan the prophet, and Semai, and Razi, and the mighty men of David did not follow after Adoniah. Okay, so mighty ones in the Hebrew. Okay. Verse 9. And Adoniah's sacrificed sheep and calves and lambs to the stone of Zoelethi, which was near Rogel, and he called all his brothers and all the adult men of Judah, servants of the king. But Nathan the prophet and Benaiah and the mighty men and Solomon his brother he did not call. And Nathan spoke to Bersabee, the mother of Solomon, saying, have you not heard that Adoniah, the son of Haggith, reigns, and our master David knows it not? And now come, let me, I pray, give you counsel, and you shall rescue your life and the life of your son Solomon. Haste and go into King David, and you shall speak to him, saying, has not you, my master, O king, sworn to your handmaid, saying, your son Solomon shall reign after me, and he shall sit upon my throne? Why then does Adoniah's reign? And behold, while you are still speaking there with the king, I also will come in after you, and I will confirm your words. So Beersheba went into the king into the chamber, and the king was very old, and Abisag the Somanite was ministering to the king. And Beersheba bowed and did obeisance to the king. The king said, what is your request? And she said, my master, you did swear by Yahuwah your Eluah to your handmaid, saying, your son Solomon shall reign after me and shall sit upon my throne. And now behold, Adoniah reigns, and you, my master, O king, know it not. And he sacrificed calves and lambs and sheep in abundance, and has called all the king's sons, and Abiathar the priest, and Joab the commander-in-chief of the army. But Solomon your servant he has not called. And you, my master, O king, the eyes of all Yasharal are upon you. Tell them who shall sit upon the throne of my master the king after him. And it shall come to pass, when my master the king shall sleep with his fathers, that I and Solomon my son shall be offenders. And behold, while she was yet talking with the king, Nathan the prophet came, and it was reported to the king. And behold, Nathan the prophet is here. And he came to the king's presence and did obeisance to the king, with his face to the ground. And Nathan said, my master, O king, did you say Adoniah shall reign after me, and he shall sit upon my throne? For he has gone down today, and has set calves and lambs and sheep in abundance, and has called all the king's sons and the chiefs of the army, and Abiathar the priest, and behold, they are eating and drinking before him. They said, long live King Adoniah. But he has not invited me, your servant, and Zadok the priest, and Benaiah the son of Udai, and Solomon your servant. Has this matter happened by the authority of my master the king? And have you not made known to your servant who shall sit upon the throne of my master the king after him? And King David, oh, sorry about that, answered and said, call me Beersheba, meaning call Beersheba to me. And she came in before the king and stood before him. And the king swore and said, as Yahuwah lives, who redeemed my soul out of all affliction, as I swore to you by Yahuwah, Allah of Yasharal, saying, Solomon your son shall reign after me, and he shall sit upon my throne in my stead. So will I do this day. And Beersheba bowed with her face to the ground and did obeisance to the king and said, let my master King David live forever. And King David said, call me Zadok the priest, and Nathan the prophet, and Benaiah the son of Udai. And they came in before the king. And the king said to them, take the servants of your master with you, and mount my son upon a mule, bring him down to Gihon. That's interesting. So Solomon's riding a donkey. Verse 34, and there let Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet anoint him to be king over Yasharal, and do you sound the trumpet, and you shall say, let King Solomon live. And he shall sit upon my throne and the reign in my stead, and I have given charge that he should be for a prince over Yasharal and Yehuda. And Benaiah the son of Udai answered the king and said, so let it be, may Yahuwah, Allah of my master the king, confirm it. As the master was with my master the king, so let him be with Solomon, and let him exalt his throne beyond the throne of my master King David. And Zadok the priest went down, and Nathan the prophet, Benaiah son of Yodai, and the Kerathite and the Pelethite, and they mounted Solomon upon the mule of King David and led him away to Gihon. And Zadok the priest took the horn of oil out of the tabernacle and anointed Solomon and blew the trumpet, and all the people said, let King Solomon live. And all the people went after him, and they danced in choirs and rejoiced with great joy, and the earth quaked with their violence. And Adonias and all his guests heard, and they had just left off eating, and Joab heard the sound of the trumpet and said, what means the voice of the city in tumult? While he was yet speaking, behold, Jonathan, the son of Abiathar, the priest, came in, and Adonias said, come in, for you are a mighty man, and you come to the king. Oh, my bad. You come to bring glad tidings. And Jonathan answered and said, verily, our master King David has made Solomon king. And the king has sent with him Zadok the priest, and Nathan the prophet, and Benaiah the son of Udai, the Kerathite and the Pelethite, and they have mounted him on the king's mule. And Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet have anointed him in Gihon, and have gone up there rejoicing. And the city resounded, this is the sound which you have heard. And Solomon is seated upon the throne of the kingdom, and the servants of the king have gone in to Barak our master, King David, saying, Allah make the name of Solomon better than your name, and make his throne greater than your throne. And the king reverenced upon him, or probably did obeisance, probably would be the right word there. Yeah. Moreover, thus said the king, Baruch be Yahuwah, the Alua of Yasharal, who has this day appointed one of my seed sitting on my throne, and my eyes see it. And we'll see that phrase, how important that phrase is once we get to the Psalms portion later today. And all the guests of Adoniah were dismayed, and every man went his way. And Adoniah feared because of Solomon, and arose and departed and laid hold on the horns of the altar. And it was reported to Solomon, saying, Behold, Adoniah fears King Solomon and holds the horns of the altar, saying, Let Solomon swear to me that he will not kill his servant with the sword. And Solomon said, If he should be a valiant man, there shall not a hair of his fall to the ground, but if evil be found in him, he shall die. Basically, valiant in that context, I would think, be a man of his word, basically telling him, you need to repent, basically. And verse 53 says here, and King Solomon sent, and they brought him away from the altar, and he went in and did obeisance to King Solomon. And Solomon said to him, Go to your house. So that is the end of 1 Kings chapter 1. We're going to move on to chapter 2, but let me just get a drink of water real quick. All right. Let's see. Here we go. Just need a little water here. Mouth getting dry. Much better. All right. Chapter 2 of 1 Kings from the LXX 2012. And the days of David drew near that he should die, and he addressed his son Solomon, saying, I go the way of all the earth. And again, we have a little note here. Greek answered. Interesting. So the Greek would more have it that he was being inquired by his son. That's kind of interesting. But be you strong and show yourself a man, and keep the charge of Yahuwah, your Alua, to walk in his ways, to keep the commandments and ordinances and judgments, right rulings, which are written in the law of Moshe, that you may understand what you shall do in all things that I command you, that Yahuwah may confirm his word which he spoke, saying, If your children shall take heed to their way to walk before me in truth with all their heart, I promise you, saying, there shall not fail you a man on the throne of Yasharal. And notice the conditional promise Yahuwah gave David. Says, if they take heed to their way to walk before me in truth. What's the truth? Psalms 119, 142 says, your Torah is truth. Your commandments are truth. So it is conditional. It's not unconditional, his promise. Okay. We'll see later on, like once you get down to Solomon and, Rehoboam, Jeroboam, how that promise was broken by David's descendants. Okay. Verse 5 here. Moreover, all that Joab, the son of Saruai, did to me, what he did to the captains of the forces of Yasharal, to Ebener, the son of Ner, to Amesai, the son of Yether, that he killed them and shed the blood of war in peace and put innocent blood on his girdle that was about his loins and on his sandal that was on his foot. Therefore, you shall deal with him according to your wisdom, and you shall not bring down his gray hairs in peace to the grave. But you shall deal kindly with the sons of Berzeli and Galadite, and they shall be among those that eat at your table. For thus they drew near to me when I fled from the face of your brother Absalom. And behold, there is with you Semai, the son of Gera, a Benjamite of Burim, and he cursed me with a grievous curse in that day when I went into the camp. And he came to Jordan to meet me, and I swore to him by Yahuwah, saying, I will not put you to death with the sword. Okay. But you shall by no means hold him guiltless, for you are a wise man and will know that you shall do to him and shall bring down his gray hairs with blood to the grave. And David slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. And the days which David reigned over Yasharal were 40 years. He reigned 70 years in Hebron and 30 years in Jerusalem. And Solomon sat on the throne of his father David, and his kingdom was established greatly. And Adoniah, the son of Agith, came into Beersheba, the mother of Solomon, and did obeisance to her. And she said, do you enter peaceably? And he said, peaceably. I have business with you. And she said to him, say on. And he said to her, you know the kingdom was mine, and all Yasharal turned their face toward me for a king. But the kingdom was turned from me and became my brother's, for it was appointed to him from Yahuwah. So this guy's actually admitting that he was never supposed to be the king in Yahuwah's eyes. So at least he's being honest. And now I make one request of you. Do not turn away your face. And Beersheba said to him, speak on. And he said to her, speak, I pray you, to King Solomon, for he will not turn away his face from you, and let him give me Abisag the Somanite for a wife. And Beersheba said, well, I will speak for you to the king. And Beersheba went in to King Solomon to speak to him concerning Adoniah, and the king rose up to meet her and kissed her and sat on the throne, and the throne was set for the mother of the king, and she sat on his right hand. And she said to him, I ask of you one little request. Turn not away my face from you. And the king said to her, ask, my mother, and I will not reject you. And she said, let, I pray you, Abisag the Somanite be given to Adoniah, your brother, to wife. And King Solomon answered and said to his mother, why have you asked Abisag for Adoniah? Ask for him the kingdom also, for he is my elder brother, and he has for his companion Abiathar the priest, and Joab, the son of Saruiah, the commander-in-chief. And King Solomon swore to Yahuwah, saying, Alua, do so to me, and more also, if be not that Adoniah has spoken this word against his own life. And now, as Yahuwah lives, who has established me and set me on the throne of my father David, and he has made me a house, as Yahuwah spoke, this day shall Adoniah be put to death. So King Solomon sent by the hand of Benaiah, the son of Udai, and he killed him, and Adoniah died in that day. And the king said to Abiathar the priest, depart you quickly to Anathoth, to your farm, for you are worthy of death this day, but I will not kill you, because you have borne the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah before my father, and because you was afflicted in all things wherein my father was afflicted. And Solomon removed Abiathar from being a priest of Yahuwah, that the word of Yahuwah might be fulfilled, which he spoke concerning the house of Heli in Salem. And I'm guessing that's Shiloh. And the report came to Joab, son of Saruai, for Joab had turned after Adoniah, and he went not after Solomon. And Joab fled to the tabernacle of Yahuwah and caught hold of the horns of the altar. And it was told Solomon, saying, Joab has fled to the tabernacle of Yahuwah, and behold, he has the hold of the horns of the altar. And King Solomon sent to Joab, saying, what ails you that you have fled to the altar? And Joab said, because I was afraid of you and fled for refuge to Yahuwah. And Solomon sent Benaiah, son of Udai, saying, go and kill him and bury him. And Benaiah, son of Udai, came to Joab to the tabernacle of Yahuwah and said to him, thus says the king, come forth. And Joab said, I will not come forth, for I will die there. And Benaiah, son of Udai, returned and spoke to the king, saying, Thus has Joab spoken, and thus has he answered me. And the king said to him, Go and do to him as he has spoken, and kill him, and you shall bury him, and you shall remove this day the blood which he shed without cause from me and from the house of my father. And Yahuwah has returned upon his own head the blood of his unrighteousness, inasmuch as he attacked two men more righteous and better than himself, and killed them with the sword. And my father David knew not of their blood, even Abner, the son of Ner, the commander-in-chief of Yashar-al, and Amasa, the son of Yether, the commander-in-chief of Yehuda. And their blood turned upon his head, and upon the head of his seed forever. In his house and his throne, may there be peace forever from Yahuwah. So Benaiah, son of Yodai, went up and attacked him and killed him and buried him in his house in the wilderness. And the king appointed Benaiah, son of Yudai, in his place over the army. King was established in Jerusalem. And as for Zadok the priest, the king appointed him to the high priest in the room of Abiathar. And Solomon, son of David, reigned over Yasharal and Yehuda in Jerusalem. And Yahuwah gave understanding to Solomon, and very much wisdom, and largeness of heart as the sand by the seashore. So that's going to be important going forward here to see what type of wisdom in the next chapter Solomon actually asked for. So, all right, chapter 3. And the wisdom of Solomon abounded exceedingly beyond the wisdom of all the ancients, beyond all the wise men of Egypt. And he took the daughter of Pharaoh and brought her into the city of David until he had finished building his own house, and the house of Yahuwah first, and the wall of Jerusalem round about. In 7 years he made and finished them. And Solomon had 70,000 bearers of burdens and 80,000 hewers of stone in the mountain. And Solomon made the sea and the bases and the great lavers and the pillars and the fountain of the court and brazen sea. And he built the citadel as a defense above it, and he made a breach in the wall of the city of David. Thus the daughter of Pharaoh went up out of the city of David to her house, which he built for her. Then he built the citadel, and Solomon offered up 3 whole burnt offerings in the year, and peace offerings on the altar, which he built to Yahuwah, and burnt incense before Yahuwah, and finished the house. Now that's kind of interesting. He's not of Levi, but he's offering peace offerings. That's kind of interesting. I find that a little interesting. Burnt incense before Yahuwah and finished the house, and these are the chief persons who preside over the works of Solomon, 3,600 masters of the masters of the people that worked the works, and he burnt Assyria, Megiddo, and Gazir, and upper Betharan, Balath, only after he had built the house of Yahuwah and the wall of Jerusalem round about. After he built these cities, and when David was yet living, he charged Solomon, saying, Behold, there is with you Samai, son of Gerah, of the seed of Benjamin, out of Hebron. He cursed me with a grievous curse in the day when I went into the camp. And he came to meet me at Jordan, and I swore to you, I swore to him by Yahuwah, saying, He shall not be slain with the sword, but now do not you hold him guiltless, for you are a man of understanding, and you will know what you shall do to him. And you shall bring him down his gray hairs with blood to the grave. And the king called Shimei and said to him, Build you a house in Jerusalem and dwell there, and you shall not go out there shall not go out thence anywhere. And it shall come to pass in the day that you shall go forth and cross over the brook Kidron, know assuredly that you shall certainly die, your blood shall be upon your head. And the king caused him to swear in that day. And Shimei said to the king, so is the word that you have spoken. My master the king, thus will your servant do. And Shimei lived in Jerusalem 3 years. It came to pass after 3 years that 2 servants of Shimei ran away to Ankus, son of Maacah, king of Geth. And it was told Shimei, saying, behold, your servants are in Geth. And Shimei rose up and saddled his donkey and went to Geth to Ankus to seek out his servants. And Shimei went and brought his servants out of Geth. And it was told Solomon, saying, Shimei is gone out of Jerusalem to Geth and has brought back his servants. And the king sent and called Shimei and said to him, did I not adjure you by Yahuwah and testify to you, saying, in whatever day you shall go out of Jerusalem and go to the right or to the left, know certainly that you shall surely die? Why have you not kept the oath of Yahuwah and the commandment which I commanded you? And the king said to Shimei, you know all your mischief, which your heart knows, which you did to David my father, and Yahuwah has repaid your mischief on your own head. And King Solomon is Baruch, and the throne of David shall be established before Yahuwah forever. Okay, and Solomon commanded Benaiah, the son of Udai, and he went forth and killed him. King Solomon was very prudent and wise, and Yehuda and Yasharal were very many, as the sand which is by the sea of multitude, eating and drinking and rejoicing. And Solomon was chief in all the kingdoms, and they brought gifts and served Solomon all the days of his life. And Solomon began to open the domains of Lebanon, and he built Termai in the wilderness. And this was the daily provision of Solomon: 30 measures of fine flour, 60 measures of ground meal or grain, 10 choice calves, and 20 oxen from the pastures, and 100 sheep, besides stags and doves, and choice fed birds. For he ruled in all the country, and on this side the river, from Raphi to Gaza, over all the kings on this side the river, and he was at peace on all the sides round about. And Yehuda and Yasharal lived safely, everyone under his vine, under his fig tree, eating and drinned feasting, from Dan even to Beersheba, all the days of Solomon. And these were the princes of Solomon: Azariah, son of Zadok the priest, and Orniu, son of Nathan, chief of the officers, and he went to his house, and Suba the scribe, and Basa, son of Achithalam, recorder, and Abi, son of Joab, commander-in-chief, and Akir, son of Idre, was over the levies, and Benaiah's son of Yodai over the household and over the brick work. And Kakur, the son of Nathan, was counselor. And Solomon had 40,000 brood mares for his chariots and 12,000 horses. And he reigned over all the kings from the river into the land of the Philistines and to the borders of Egypt. So Solomon, the son of David, reigned over Yasharal and Yehuda in Jerusalem. Woo! Okay, there's a lot there that the Mizrahi doesn't have that I just read. Woo! Okay, here we go. Verse 2 of chapter 3. Nevertheless, the people burned incense in the high places, because a house had not yet been built to Yahuwah. So here we go. We got like a transitional period. No more tabernacle in the wilderness. So you got really, it's almost like a repeat of Deuteronomy 12, where now, Yahuwah is going to put a stop to it soon, where he's, going to have his house built by Solomon, where it doesn't have to change. Let me see here. We're getting someone here. So we're at chapter 3, verse 2. Okay, we're doing chapter 3, verse 2 of First Kings here. So let me just go back to my sword here. Okay, and Solomon loved Yahuwah so as to walk in the ordinances of David his father, And he arose and went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the highest place. And great Solomon offered a whole burnt offering, 1,000 victims on the altar at Gibeon. And Yahuwah appeared to Solomon in a dream by night. And Yahuwah said to Solomon, ask some petition for yourself. And Solomon said, you have dealt very mercifully with your servant David, my father, according as he walked before you in truth and in righteousness and in uprightness of heart with you. And you have kept for him this great mercy. You set his son upon his throne, as it is today. And now, O Yahuwah, my Eluah, you have appointed your servant in the room of David, my father, and I am a little child, and know not my going out and coming in. Interesting. But your servant is in the midst of your people, whom you have chosen, great people, which as this day can't be numbered. You shall give, therefore, to your servant a heart to hear, and to judge your people justly, righteously, and to discern between Tob and evil. For who will be able to rightly rule this your great people? So he's asking for a certain type of prudence, just regular wisdom of the scriptures, because already, as we saw in the last chapter, Yahuwah already gave him that, and David even trained him somewhat before he died. So, and it was pleasing before Yahuwah that Solomon asked this thing. And Yahuwah said to him, because you have asked this thing of me and have not asked for yourself long life, living long on the land Yahuwah is going to give them, Yashrael, that promise he gave to them. So because Solomon has not asked for a prolonged, longer lifespan, have not asked for wealth, nor have asked for lives of your enemies, meaning for the enemies to be handed over to him, but have asked for yourself understanding to hear. Behold, I have done according to your word. I have given you an understanding. And after you there shall not rise one like you. He was obviously using context of a normal mortal person, no one like him after him. We'll see later on in the Brit Hadashah how Yehusha himself says one greater than Solomon is here to himself. So yeah. And I have given you what you have not asked, wealth and esteem, so that there has not been anyone like you among kings. And if you will walk in my way to keep my ordinances as David your father walked, then will I multiply your days. And Solomon awoke, and behold, he was a dream, and he arose and came to Jerusalem, and stood before the altar that was in front of the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah in Sion, and he offered whole burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings, made very banquet for himself and for his servants. Before the king, and they stood. And let me just see. I think there's someone who's got background noise. Hold on a second. Is there anyone? I think it might be. All right, let me just see here. Okay, let me just hold on a sec because I want to. Anyone's got a question? I'll answer a question after this chapter. All right. Then there appeared two harlots before the king and stood before him. And the one woman said, hear me, my master. And this woman lived in one house, and we were delivered in the house. And it came to pass on the third day after I was delivered, this woman also was delivered, and we were together. And there was no one with us besides our two selves in the house. And this woman's child died in the night because she overlaid it. And she arose in the middle of the night and took my son from my arms and laid him in her bosom and laid her dead son in my bosom. And I arose in the morning to suckle my son, and he was dead. And behold, I considered him in the morning, and behold, it was not my son whom I bore. And the other woman said, no, but the living is my son. and the dead is your son. So they spoke before the king, and the king said to them, you say, this is my son, even the living one, and this woman's son is the dead one. And you say, no, but the living one is my son, and the dead one is your son. And the king said, fetch a sword. And they brought a sword before the king. And the king said, divide the living child, the suckling, into two, and give half of it to one and half it to the other. And the woman whose the living child was answered and said to the king, for her bowels yearned over her son. And she said, I pray you, my master, give her the child and in no wise kill it. But the other said, let it be neither mine nor hers, divide it. Then the king answered and said, give the child to her that said, give it to her, and by no means kill it. She is its mother. Then the king answered and said, give the child to her that said, give it. Okay, so she's the mother. Okay, I already read that. Verse 28, and all Yasharal heard this judgment which the king judged, and they feared before the king, because they saw that the wisdom of Alua was in him to execute right ruling. So now my mom will be continuing on, but let me just check here. I see something in the chat here, so let me just make sure there's no questions or anything before we move on. I see something here. Okay. Okay, yeah. All right, we're all good. All right, Mom, go ahead.
Okay, chapter 4. So King Solomon ruled over all Israel, and these were his chief officials: Azariah, son of Zadok the priest, Elihoreph and Ahijah, son of Shisha, secretaries, Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, recorder, Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, commander-in-chief, Zadok and Abiathar, priests, Azariah, son of Nathan, in charge of the district officers, Zabud, son of Nathan, a priest and personal advisor to the king, Ahishar, in charge of the palace, Adoniram, son of Abda, in charge of forced labor. Solomon also had 12 district governors over all Yashrael, who supplied provisions for the king and the royal household. Each one had to provide supplies for 1 month in the year. These are their names: Ben-Hur in the hill country of Ephraim, Ben-Decker in Makaz, Shalbim, Beth-Shemesh, and Elon Beth-Hanan, Beth-Hesed in Aruboth, Sukkah, and all the land of Hefer were his. Ben Abinadab in Naphtali, Dor, he was married to Taphath, daughter of Solomon. Bana, son of Ahilud, in Tanakh, and Megiddo, and in all of Bethshan, next to Zarathan, below Jezreel, from Bethshan to Abel Meholah, across to Jokmeam. Ben-Geber in Ramoth Gilead, the settlements of Jer, son of Manasseh, in Gilead were his, as well as the district of Argob in Bashan, and its 60 large walled cities with bronze gates, bars. Ahimdab, son of Edo, in Mahanaim, Ahimaaz in Naphtali, he had married Basemath, daughter of Solomon. Bana, son of Hushai, in Asher and in Aleph, that son of Paruah, in Issachar. Shimei, son of Elah, in Benjamin. Geber, son of Uri, in Gilead, the country of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and the country of Og, king of Bashan. He was the only governor over the district. Okay, Solomon's daily provisions. The people of Yehuda and Yashrael were as numerous as the sand on the seashore. They ate, they drank, and they were happy. And Solomon ruled over all the kingdoms from the river to the land of the Philistines. so far as the border of Egypt. These countries brought tribute and were Solomon's subjects all his life. Solomon's daily provisions were 30 cores of fine flour, excuse me, and 60 cores of meal, 10 head of stall-fed cattle, 20 of
What verse are you at, Mom?
I'm at 22,
Okay.
422,
All right.
talking about his provisions.
Okay.
10 head of stall-fed cattle, 20 of pasture-fed cattle, and 100 sheep and goats, as well as deer, gazelles, roebucks, and choice fowl. For he ruled over the kingdoms west of the river, from Tifsa to Gaza, and had peace on all sides. During Solomon's lifetime, Yehuda and Yashrael, from Dan to Beersheba, lived in safety, each man under his own vine and fig tree. Solomon had 4,000 stalls for chariot horses and 12,000 horses. The district officers, each in his month, supplied provisions for King Solomon and all who came to the king's table. They saw to it that nothing was lacking. They also brought to the proper place their quotas of barley and straw for the chariot horses and the other horses. Solomon's wisdom. Yahuwah gave Solomon wisdom and very great insight, and a breadth of understanding as meaningless as the sand on the seashore, is measureless, excuse me, as, as measureless as the sand on the seashore. Solomon's wisdom was greater than the wisdom of all the men of the east, and greater than all the wisdom of Egypt. He was wiser than any other man, including Ethan the Ezrahite, wiser than Heman, Calcol, and Darda, the sons of Mahal, and his fame spread to all the surrounding nations. He spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs numbered 1,005. He described plant life from the cedar of Lebanon to the hyssop that grows out of walls. He also taught about animals and birds, reptiles and fish. Men of all nations came to listen to Solomon's wisdom, sent by all the kings of the world who had heard of his wisdom. Chapter 5.
Hold on. I guess your version doesn't have this, I guess. Okay. Okay, so there's a little bit after for the Septuagint has a little bit after that period. It says, and Solomon took to himself the daughter of Pharaoh to wife, and brought her into the city of David until he had finished the house of Yahuwah and his own house and the wall of Jerusalem. Then went up Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and took Gazer and burnt it, and the Canaanite dwelling in Mergab, and Pharaoh gave them as a dowry to his daughter, the wife of Solomon, and Solomon rebuilt Gazer. So talks about the his father-in-law, this Pharaoh actually destroyed some of these giant tribes, the Canaanites that were living in around Gezer and all that. So, and it also talks about Solomon took this daughter of Pharaoh, which we saw in a couple chapters earlier. It talked about. So it seems like this story is restated in the Septuagint, but not in the Masoretic.
All right. Want me to continue?
Yep.
Okay. Preparations for building the temple. When Hiram, king of Tyre, heard that Solomon had been anointed king to succeed his father David, he sent his envoys to Solomon, because he had always been on friendly terms with David. Solomon sent back this message to Hiram. You know that because of the wars waged against my father David from all sides, he could not build a temple for the name of Yahuwah his Elohim, until Yahuwah put his enemies under his feet. But now the Lord my Elohim has given me peace on every side. Yahuwah my Elohim has given me peace on every side, and there is no adversary or disaster. I intend, therefore, to build a temple for the name of Yahuwah my Elohim. As Yahuwah told my father David, when he said, your son, who I will put on the throne in your place, who built the temple, who will build the temple for my name. So give orders that cedars of Lebanon be cut for me. My men will work with yours, and I will pay you for your men whatever wages you set. You know that we have no one so skilled in felling timber as the Sidonians. When Hiram heard Solomon's message, he was greatly pleased and said, praise be to Yahuwah today, for he has given David a wise son to rule over this great nation. So Hiram sent word to Solomon, I have received the message you sent me, and will do all you want in providing the cedar and pine logs. My men will haul them down from Lebanon to the sea, and I will float them in rafts by sea to the place you specify. There I will separate them, and you can take them away, and you are to grant my wish by providing food for my royal household. In this way, Hiram kept Solomon supplied with all the cedar and pine logs he wanted. And Solomon gave Hiram 20,000 cores of wheat as food for his household, in addition to 20,000 of wood. Solomon continued to do this for Hiram year after year. Yahuwah gave Solomon wisdom, just as he had promised him. There were peaceful relations between Hiram and Solomon, and the two of them made a treaty. King Solomon conscripted laborers from all Yashrael, 30,000 men. He sent them off to Lebanon in shifts of 10,000 a month, so that they spent 1 month in Lebanon and 2 months at home. Adoniram was in charge of the forced labor. Solomon had 20,000 carriers and 80,000 stone cutters in the hills, as well as 3,300 foremen who supervised the project and directed the workmen. At the king's command, they removed from the quarry large blocks of quality stones to provide a foundation of dressed stones for the temple. The craftsmen of Solomon and Hiram and the men of Gabal cut and prepared the timber and stone for the building of the temple. And that's the end of 5. Unless you have anything else. No.
I was looking at verses 3, 5, and 6, but that's about it. I thought it was interesting. It talks about David could not build the house to Yahuwah, which you'll see in multiple verses beforehand where Yahuwah says, verse 5 here, I thought was interesting. Talks about build a house to the name of Yahuwah, my Elohim. So right here it says, this is what Yahuwah would call his name by, is a physical building, an actual temple. Okay. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And let's see here. I thought it was interesting. Solomon mentions in verse 6, it says, no one is skilled in cutting timber as the Sidonians. Now, from what I've seen from my mom's NIV map she has on her Bible, even, that the Sidon and Tyre were very close to one another. Mm-hmm. So for some reason, that region, they really knew how to cut the trees of Lebanon and all that. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, you can continue to chapter 6.
Okay, now this is Solomon builds the temple. In the 480th year after the Israelites had come out of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Ziv, the 2nd month, he began to build the temple of Yahuwah. The temple that King Solomon built for Yahuwah was 60 cubits long, 20 wide, and 30 high. The portion at the front of the main hall of the temple extended the width of the temple, that is 20 cubits, and projected 10 cubits from the front of the temple. He made narrow clerestory windows in the temple. Against the walls of the main hall an inner sanctuary, he built a structure around the building in which they were side rooms. The lowest floor was 5 cubits wide. The middle floor was 6 cubits, and the third floor 7. He made offset ledges around the outside of the temple so that nothing would be inserted into the temple walls. In building the temple, only blocks dressed at the quarry were used, and no hammer, chisel, or any other iron tool was heard at the temple site while it was being built. The entrance to the lowest floor was on the south side of the temple. A stairway led up to the middle level and from there to the third. So he built the temple and completed it, roofing it with beams and cedar planks. And he built the side rooms all along the temple. The height of each was 5 cubits, and they were attached to the temple by beams of cedar. The word of Yahuwah came to Solomon. As for this temple you are building, if you follow my decrees, carry out my regulations, and keep all my commands and obey them, I will fulfill through you the promise I gave to David your father. And I will live among the Yashraelites and will not abandon my people, Yasrael. So Solomon built the temple and completed it. He lined its interior walls with cedar boards, paneling them from the floor of the temple to the ceiling, and covered the floor of the temple with planks of pine. He partitioned off 20 cubits at the rear of the temple with cedar boards from floor to ceiling to form within the temple an inner sanctuary, the most set apart place. The main hall in front of this room was 40 cubits long. The inside of the temple was cedar, carved with browns and open flowers. Everything was cedar. No stone was to be seen. He prepared the inner sanctuary within the temple to set the Ark of the Covenant of Yahuwah there. The inner sanctuary was 20 cubits long, 20 wide, 20 high. He overlaid it with pure gold, and he also overlaid the altar of cedar. Solomon covered the inside of the temple with pure gold, and he extended gold chains across the front of the inner sanctuary, which was overlaid with gold. So he overlaid the whole interior with gold. He also overlaid with gold the altar that belonged to the inner sanctuary. In the inner sanctuary, he made a pair of cherubim of olive wood, each 10 cubits high. One wing of the first cherub was 5 cubits long, and the other wing 5 cubits to 10 cubits, from wingtip to wingtip. The second cherub also measured 10 cubits, for the 2 cherubim were identical in size and shape. The height of each cherub was 10 cubits. He placed the cherubim inside the innermost room of the temple with their wings spread out. The wing of one cherub touched one wall, while the wing of the other touched the other wall, and their wings touched each other in the middle of the room. He overlaid the cherubim with gold. On the walls all around the temple, in both the inner and outer rooms, he carved cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers. He also covered the floors of both gold. For the entrance of the inner sanctuary, he made doors of olive wood with 5-sided jambs. That does say jambs, yes. And on the 2 olive wood
new thing. It just stopped.
You go.
All right. Okay. I didn't realize for some reason we were muted. I don't know how long we were muted for. Could you read the last portion of that chapter just in case, Mom?
Okay.
Because somehow we were muted. I don't know how that happened.
All right. So, where do you
Like the last couple of verses you were just
Oh,
reading.
this last-
Yeah.
Okay.
So it shouldn't have been for that long. We got disconnected for 5 minutes. So it's like it should be the last 5 or 10 verses you were reading.
Okay. For the entrance of the inner sanctuary, he made doors of olive wood with 5-sided jambs. And on the 2 olive wood doors, he carved cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers, and overlaid the cherubim and palm trees with beaten gold. In the same way, he made 4-sided jambs of olive wood for the entrance to the main hall. He also made 2 pine doors, each having 2 leaves that turned in sockets. He carved cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers on them, and overlaid them with gold hammered evenly over the carvings. And he built the inner courtyard of 3 courses of dressed stone and 1 course of trimmed cedar beams. The foundation of the temple of Yahuwah was laid in the 4th year in the month of Zip. In the 11th year, in the month of Bul, the 8th month, the temple was finished in all its details according to its specifications. He had spent 7 years building it.
Okay. All right. So we're now going to be getting to after I start a new recording here, we're gonna be going to Psalms 120 to 36. We'll pick a couple of readers for that portion because it's a pretty big portion. We're gonna try to have 2 or 3 different people read that portion, Psalms 120 to 36. So please stay tuned, everyone that are watching and tuning in. We'll be right back. We'll be back very briefly. I'm just gonna set up a new recording right now, so stay tuned. Yeah.